Thank you so much for your kind words of introduction. I would like to begin by congratulating Eiffel and the team members for on their first anniversary, and to the three wonderful ladies, Yermi, Zenalun, and Christine, for their hard work and dedication for making this Eiffel a reality and to cater the needs of our younger generations in the field of foreign languages. And I also would like to wish Eiffel and hope that in the coming times, in the future, it will become more progressive and productive as well. I would also like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Eiffel and the team members for giving me such a wonderful opportunity to share my experiences and some of my thoughts on prospects and challenges of learning foreign language. For my presentation, I have briefly titled it as Challenges and Scope of Learning Chinese in India. And I would also like to, since most of our participants are from the northeastern regions, I also would like to focus on a small part on the northeastern regions of India. So to begin with, I am looking into why and what is Chinese? Why are we looking into Chinese, and what are the things that we are expecting from learning Chinese? With more focus on the academic side, as my friend Ramtaya will be talking on the corporate sector. So to begin with, when we look at Chinese, it can be observed that since the past 2-3 decades, the emergence of China as a global player and also as the world's second largest economy, the demand for a Chinese language has gone up drastically, not only in India, but across the globe. So even in India, even if we have this paradoxical relation when it comes to geopolitical relation with China, well, we still do need, there is a still increase and a demand for Chinese language experts in India. So, and given such factors, we realize that being proficient and Chinese being considered as one of the languages for the future, we cannot ignore the importance and the significance of learning Chinese. But at the same time, we also need to see the reality of the situation. And so we have to, in order to attain the goals and the benefits of learning the language, we really need to look into and have an in-depth study of what are the reasons, what are the targets and attitudes and the strategies while learning the language. So what is Chinese then? We all know what is Chinese, but if we look in deeper, it is, of course, it is one of the most widely spoken language in the world, with more than 1.4 billion speakers across the globe. And there are, in fact, various variants and dialects of Chinese. For example, Mandarin, which we will be focusing on, or Cantonese, Hakka, Hunanese, etc. And all these dialects are mutually unintelligible. But since our focus will be on Mandarin Chinese, we will briefly have a look into what is Mandarin Chinese, or this Mandarin Chinese that we're looking into is the official language of People's Republic of China and the Republic of China, which also goes by the name of Taiwan. So Mandarin Chinese belongs to the Sinitic branch of Sino-Tibetan languages, and the term Mandarin actually is an exonym. It has a Portuguese origin, but if you trace back to the words, it actually comes from Sanskrit word mantri, which is for officials. Now the Chinese has the two writing system at present. One is the traditional writing system, and the other one is simplified writing system. So the simplified writing system was introduced only in 1949 after the establishment of People's Republic of China, and it is the script that we foreigners are using when we learn Chinese at present. But the traditional characters are also still used today, especially in places like Taiwan, Macau, and Hong Kong, and also among the overseas communities across Chinese overseas communities. But till today, the importance of traditional Chinese character is also still there even in mainland China or People's Republic of China, because most of the traditional or the ancient texts are still in traditional characters. So now this is a very brief introduction of what we are getting into as Chinese language. Now, coming to the scope of learning Chinese in India, what are the things that we can look into? Which kind of in which sectors can we look into? Now, if we look at China and India, these are two great ancient civilizations of Asia, and the kind of bilateral relation that we have been sharing dates back to ancient time, which we can trace back to 2nd century BCE, where when records of how Buddhism went to China from India were recorded. So even at present times and over the past decades, these two great Asian countries have been significantly attached in terms of their geopolitical relation, in terms of diplomacy, people-to-people contact, and in different forms of connectivity. But though the diplomatic ties, especially after the pandemic, has been deteriorating, we still cannot ignore China, and China is still one of the most important neighbors of our country. Moreover, if we look at the recent news of how Chinese apps are banned in China, in India, or how protests against Chinese products are, the campaign of protesting against Chinese products are there. But if we look at the reality, we can still see that there is a huge trade deficit. If we look at the economic sector, we can still see that India highly depends on China. If we look at the 2021-2022 trade relation, the trade deficit has gone up to $72.9 billion in 2021 and 2022 alone. So looking at these factual figures, we cannot ignore the importance of China, and we cannot deny that the role that we have between India and China is negligible. So given all these factors, there's a need to understand that knowing Chinese is still a very important indispensable factor that we still have today. And for example, when we look at some of the sectors that India highly depends on China, we have pharmaceutical raw materials, we have electronic components, computer hardware, telecom equipment, fertilizers, industrial machinery, and consumer electronics. So these are some of the important sectors where we depend highly on China. So that is why it is very evident that the need for us Indians to understand or to learn or to know Chinese is still very relevant. Moreover, the concept of Asian century, which was first coined by a Chinese leader Deng Xiaoping, to make that Asian century possible, if these two ancient civilizations and two great emerging economies, unless they work and cooperate together, the realization of such a dream is not very possible. So keeping such knowledge in mind, we need to understand that the proficiency of Chinese can not only provide lucrative job and career opportunities in different fields, but it can also be a platform for us to understand China, its people, its culture, and society. So looking at the career prospects, we have several career options when we look at various foreign languages, and including Chinese, like private sectors, MNCs, freelance career, language experts can also be employed in international organizations like United Nations. Government sectors, if we look at Chinese, we can see in cabinet secretary, or under UPSC as junior interpreters and translators, research organizations and think tanks. We have several in different parts of India. Moreover, we have in defense establishments like as an English Chinese language instructors or translators. Then we also have tourism sectors, hospitality sector, airlines, diplomatic sectors, etc. So, but when we narrow down to Northeast, when we look at the strategic location that we are located, and furthermore, with many affinities, especially when it comes to culture and the language that we speak. When I'm saying the language, Chinese has being as from the same, many of the Northeastern tribal languages are from Sino-Tibetan languages. And we have a very close affinity with Chinese language in terms of, especially in terms of spoken form, which most of our languages are Tony languages. It can be a huge advantage for students from the Northeast to take up this course, because learning, when it comes to the challenges, one of the most cited reason for learning Chinese is the tones for many speakers who doesn't speak tonal languages. So for Northeast people from Northeastern regions, especially people who speak tonal languages, I believe that this language can be one we can use it as an advantage while learning the language. So, but if you look at the reality now, the ratio of students pursuing career in foreign languages, especially if we look at Chinese, the ratio is still very low. So we can still explore this side of career also. And some of the, I would like to just briefly go through the institutes and or universities that provides Chinese courses in India. And while doing so, I believe I will also touch on some of the questions that the participants have raised in the chat box. And there are several, almost 40 or more than 40 universities, private and colleges, both private and government, which provides courses in Chinese language. Some of them are like JNU, University of Delhi, Viswabharati, BHU, Doon University, Central University of Gujarat, Jharkhand University, Jamia, and Sanchi University, etc. And moreover, if we look at Northeast, we have Tejpur University, Manipur University, and Sikkim University offering this Chinese courses. Of course, besides this, there are several other private run institutes which offer different types of courses in Chinese language. Now, but depending when we look at what kind of course or for how long or the duration that we need to study Chinese, it really depends on the need of the student. For example, if somebody is looking for a career choice in academics, the minimum duration that you will need, or for that matter in government sector, minimum requirement will be undergraduate level, 3 years of undergraduate level, or postgraduate, masters, or beyond that also. Now, for if you're looking at career for language instructor, you might have to even clear the UGC NET exam for India. But besides that, we have HSK exam, which is the Chinese proficiency test. And this is an international standardized test for Chinese language proficiency. And it is organized by the Chinese Education Ministry. So this is mainly for the non-native speakers, and the certificate of this exam can be used for different purposes. It can be used in your academic purpose. It can be used in if you want to pursue career or further studies in Chinese in China, or even in this international or other organizations wherever you seek your career for. So now this test, it is also in line, or I should say, it is it goes in line with the this thing CFER, which is a common European framework for framework reference for language. So it is a highly standardized, recognized by almost all the countries across the world wherever Chinese is required. Now, but there are different levels according to the level of the student, but most of the international organizations or reputed organizations will look for candidates who have cleared level 5 to level 6 of the HSK exam. And for clearing that level 5 to 6, a student might require to know around 3,000 to 5,000 Chinese characters, which might require at least 3 years, minimum 3 years of study. Now, and in India at present, we have almost 12 HSK centers in different parts of India. Now, besides this, if a student wants to opt for career in or learn the language in China or Taiwan, there are various kinds of scholarships and fellowship provided by government as well as other organizations like host universities, etc. I have picked some of the fellowships which are quite popular, I should say, among the Indians. And I would like to name a few of them and share it with you all. The first is the MHRD Chinese Government Fellowship. It is given for higher studies and research or advanced studies, and it is under the India-China Cultural Exchange Program. The second is the Confucius Institute Scholarship, and this scholarship, Confucius Institute, it is under the flagship of the Chinese government. This institute runs to provide the need of foreigners learning Chinese, and this program is it can be availed by students, scholars, or Chinese language instructors to learn Chinese culture, Chinese language in different universities of China. The other scholarship is the Huayu Enrichment Scholarship Program, and it is established by the Ministry of Education. But it is from Taiwan, not from People's Republic of China. And this is also for international students who wants to undertake a foreign language or Mandarin language in Taiwan. The other scholarship we have is Schwarzman Scholars, which supports around 200 scholars from across the globe. And they give us this thing in Tsinghua University, which is in Beijing. And this fellowship provides a deeper understanding, and actually this fellowship is for inter-studies of China and the rest of the world. So this is another scholarship or fellowship that the students can apply. The other fellowship, which is for doctoral fellowship, is provided by Institute of Chinese Studies in Delhi and Harvard Yenching Institute in Harvard University. This is a joint scholarship which is awarded to doctoral candidates who are already enrolled in Indian universities. So these are just few selected ones that I have picked from the many other scholarships that are available for our students. And if one wants to explore the details of fellowships are all of them are available in their particular websites. And if somebody wants to know also, we can share at least some of the information that we know after the presentation hour. Now, so these are some of the prospects that we can look into when we talk about Chinese languages. But having said this, we have to also see the challenges or the hardships of how or what we encounter while learning Chinese. Now, one of the most common factor that we see when we learn Chinese is that many people used to say Chinese is one of the most challenging language in the world to learn. So I don't know whether I should agree with that or not, but I believe because, for example, it is a tonal language to start with, and a student may require to learn at least 5,000 Chinese characters to be an educated or to clear HSK level 6. So, but I believe that by using the right step and understanding the underlying meanings behind those characters will in fact be a very interesting part of learning the language. Because I would like to share one experience here, because what we have learned is that most of the Chinese characters are derived from pictographic scripts. Chinese doesn't have alphabets like many other languages that we know. Most of the characters are formed by pictographic scripts. And these pictographic scripts in turn combine with other elements to form different words and other words. And the characters are filled with meanings and stories unique to them. So if a careful study is done on these characters, it can in fact help in understanding and deciphering the nuanced cultural elements which are hidden inside the characters, and also reveal a lot about Chinese society. For example, when we talk about a character, which I'm not able to use the screen, but the character of good or the word good in Chinese derives from combination of two existing pictures an image of a mother and an image of a son. So it is believed, so these two are already a concrete existing image, but the word good is an abstract form which we cannot see. So combining mother and son, the relationship between a mother and son and mother and son is good. So the word goods derives from such a combining of such existing pictographic characters. And besides this, if we really look into the word good in Chinese, it has also another hidden meaning. When we talk about the relation between a mother and a child, we are not talking about a relation between a mother and a daughter, but we are looking into a relation between a mother and a son, because it is believed that since Chinese they are also from a patriarchal society, it is believed that it is good for a woman to have a son, not a daughter. So the meaning of good is derived from such characters. So we can see that so many things about the culture, about the society can also be revealed from learning the characters. So I should say that learning Chinese characters is in fact a very interesting process to even decipher the hidden cultural elements behind the characters. Now, so that is one factor that I would like to point out. The other thing is, when we talk about focusing on northeastern regions of India, like I've mentioned earlier, since we speak tonal language, we have better upper hand in learning the language, especially the spoken form. But when we look into the structures of the language, like for example, even our cultural affinities, we see so many similarities. Like for example, the way we greet. Amongst the Chinese also, some of the most common forms of greeting will not be just going about and saying hi or hello, but they will end up asking you, where are you going? Have you taken your meal? Have you taken your food, etc., which is very common even in our cultures. The other thing is, I'm taking an example of Manipuri language. I hope most of us knows Manipuri, so I'm picking up this Manipuri, few words from Manipuri language, which has the exact meaning in Chinese. For example, Ming. Ming in Manipuri is also name, right? And even in Chinese, Ming means name. The word Mang, which is for dream, it is also same in Chinese and Manipuri. Likewise, the sentence, what is your name? In Manipuri, we say Nangi Ming Kuri Kauge. Now, if you see the structure, even in Chinese, we have 你叫什么名字? Now, in English, we just have the sentence, what is your name? But in Chinese and Manipuri, if we see, there is a verb. In Manipuri, the verb is kauge, and in Chinese, it is jiao. So if we look at these two words, if we literally translate them, these are the meaning are to be called. So the purpose of names, which is to call out somebody's name. So if we see all these kind of structures, we see so many similarities in these two languages also. I'm not going to so much into this. I'm just citing these few examples to help us understand that we have so much of cultural affinities, even in terms of our linguistic structures and also our culture and society. So I don't think that this should be a challenge, but in fact, if we can turn these challenges into an advantage, especially for people from Northeast. Now, the other factor that I want to look into as a challenge for learning Chinese in India is that the geopolitical relationship. It's a we share a very paradoxical relationship with China, and especially after this pandemic, it looks like the situations are aggravating. But and in fact, these are having an impact on the learning environment also. But if we look at the brighter side, it is undeniable that both India and China cannot isolate each other, as both the countries are rising in a global platform. So we have throughout different centuries, throughout the years, we have China and India had their shares of ups and downs, and they have worked out their differences and interests amicably, weighing the benefits and through mutual understandings and cooperation. And additionally, at present, where everything is becoming globalized and interconnected, knowing a foreign language has become a very necessary skill for enhancing one's career prospect. And we cannot afford to keep on missing out the both. And but if we look at the answers to the dilemma of many Indians, I hope we here also, many of us will feel the same, whether to consider the question of whether to consider China as a friend or a foe, whether to shun or cooperate with it, given the complicated relationship that we share. The answers can be very diversified, but whichever way the relationship turns out, I believe that to understand the Chinese psyche will be very indispensable for India. And I would like to end my this presentation with a quote from a Chinese strategist, ancient Chinese strategist Sun Tzu, written in his book The Art of War. So, and I quote: "If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle," unquote. And with this, I hope that whatever challenges and advantages that we have, we
Well
can
said.
learn from this language. We will be able to use it in the future. And for the rest, if we have questions, we might take it up in the Q&A session. With this, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you.